Welcome to The Holistic Truth, sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers. Nutritional Frontiers is a Pittsburgh-based professional nutraceutical company founded by Dr. James Weiner and Jamie Dorley, and they are celebrating their 12th anniversary. All of the Nutritional Frontiers formulations are 100% guaranteed for purity and potency and follow the highest quality control standards today, including CGMP manufacturing facilities, certificates of analysis, and third-party testing. Want the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
And now, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It's Nutritional Frontiers and the Holistic Truth.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Holistic Truth. This is your free classroom on the air, sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers, where we're breaking through nutritional boundaries. And today we are going to be discussing some controversial topics, such as the new CDC recommendations based on the the World Health Organization, and their new findings that perhaps asymptomatic carriers spread coronavirus. Not true? Today with me, as always, is my co-host, Joe Messino. I am Tracy Stroup. I am a naturopathic doctor, also a certified natural health professional, been in the field for over 25 years, and we have an exceptional guest on today. Dr. Len Brantzowitz from The Nutrition Shop is here to discuss this topic, along with fibromyalgia. He's an MD, along with a PhD in pharmacy, so I'd like to welcome everybody right now because I think this is going to be a hot topic today. Joe and Dr. Len, are you here with me today?
Good morning, Tracy. Good to hear from you.
Hello.
And I'm here too.
All right. So I thought
hey, Len, I'm great, buddy. How you been?
I'm good, Joe. This is like getting reacquainted again. It's been too long, Joe. We're gonna have fun today though, because Tracy's already seated me this morning. She's already given me a lot of tease about some of the topics she wants to go over, and she says, "You're not going to be controversial, are you?" And I said, I'm only that 95% of the time, so I think we'll have a good talk today.
I think so, too, because I'm a little controversial myself. So let's get into
so Len's like, who's the third? I said, Joe. And he's like, I said, yeah, Joe and I break it down on Tuesdays. We rip the mask right off, and we just go at it. So, well, in light of the new discoveries by the WHO, they finally caught up with the rest of the free world, that asymptomatic spread of coronavirus is very rare. And no wonder Trump fired them. I mean, seriously, imagine these guys working for your company.
No. Never.
Dr. Len, I'm sure you saw this, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about fibromyalgia here in the second half of the show, but I thought this was so important that we should talk about it. So what do you think? Did you read their new findings?
Let me just give you a little story, and this happens to be near and dear to you all, okay, because it's a friend of mine who's a farmer in Pittsburgh, that his Mexican helpers came up over the weekend to start working for the summer. They come up every year. They've been doing it for 20 years. And they came in, get reacquainted, haven't seen you, how was your winter, et cetera, et cetera. He goes home, starts running a fever, goes into St. Clair Hospital, you know where that is, and is diagnosed with coronavirus. Now, what that did was the trickle-down effect was he didn't breathe on anybody, he didn't cough on anybody, he was completely asymptomatic. Completely, until 2 days later. And this put a complete shutdown to the fellow I'm talking about. And he's going to go unnamed right at this moment, but that put him into a shutdown. And because he's in a house with his wife, put her into a shutdown. And he was instructed by his doctor to stay away from his wife, to stay in a separate house, and not even come in contact with his own dog. And he called me yesterday in a complete panic.
What if he doesn't like his dog? Would that have been okay?
I know. It's so absurd. So I watched the news this morning, and this nonsense from the world. You know, I've already said over and over again on my radio things that I've done. The World Health Organization is one of the most overplayed, bloated, worthless organizations, only secondary to the FDA, because they're bad also. But this information came out that said basically, if you're not symptomatic. If you're not ill, you're not running a massive temperature, you're not coughing all over people, and you happen to come in somewhat of a contact with somebody, with or without a mask, you're really not contagious. And have we not been saying that through the whole course of this thing? We put people into lockdown, panic, etc., running to doctors, running in panic mode, and really it looks like at least 60, 70, 80% of the time it really wasn't necessary.
Well,
Glenn, go ahead, Jeff.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen so many different things. I mean, everybody's coming out against these masks, but people are still conforming. They're just following along like nice little robots. You know, going through these airports has been it turns into a comedy show. You know, and yesterday I came to the conclusion, watching people in the airport terminal, that this is the single most intelligent virus ever known to man, because it automatically stops spreading when you take your mask down to eat your fast food crap at the airport. So what in the world are we doing here, Len?
There's another
so absurd.
thing, too. So my friend who's a surgeon, Harvard graduate surgeon in Florida, does plastic surgery, and he said that masks that we're wearing outside to prevent corona, he said, is like putting up a chain link fence to keep mosquitoes out. He said, you know, when you're in surgery, when you're a doctor, he said, you're 13 inches away from somebody. He said, at most. He said, I'm close up, I'm looking in. He said, I don't want any saliva, any sweat, anything going into that area. He said, that's the point of the mask. You know, He said that it's not to prevent a viral infection. He said, if you're sick, you're not allowed to do surgery. He's like, that's called common sense. He said, but the whole world has operated for decades and decades and decades on the premise of you kind of know when you're getting sick. And if you're a surgeon, medical practitioner, you shouldn't come in and cut somebody open. You know, so also those masks are fitted. They're a different grade of mask. And he said what we're doing in society is giving people a false sense of hope. He said it's probably the placebo effect more than it is anything else. And he's a Harvard graduate, medical surgeon, medical doctor, fully bought in, 100%. And he was like, this is stupid. He's like, we are being silly here. So number one, we have a panicked group of people out there who watched the television, got programmed for the indoctrination of the world, and believed without doing any research whatsoever on their own. And in the age of information, ignorance is a choice, 100%, to bow down and just listen to what an organization that the president just said, you're out of here. You're out of here because you didn't know what you were doing. I'm firing you from a presidential standpoint, but everybody else is still listening. 3, I didn't know viruses knew colors, but I thought green meant go. But apparently in the viral world, it means stop. So we have a whole opposition in the color spectrum. But I was at a baseball game, Dr. Len, and this was a 7-field complex this weekend. And this complex is privately owned, so they opened up. Didn't require masks. It was a tiny little bottle of hand sanitizer when you walked in. You could use it if you wanted to. 300 people laying around, blankets, tents, side by side. And you had about a probably 5-foot gap walkway between the fields. You know, you could just walk in between the fields to get where you needed to go. And so people were sitting in those walkways to watch the players from the outfield. I'm walking through with a friend of mine. There's 5 feet, 2 people side by side, people coming each direction. Nobody has masks on anywhere. Maybe 1 or 2 I saw. And this lady gets up and screams at me, 6 feet! And I'm like, apparently you failed the core mask because there's only about 5 feet of space here. Like, would you like me to create a foot for you? Like, you're at a baseball game outside without a mask on, and you're screaming at me for walking too close to you when there's no space. Like, in my mind, common sense right there has left the complex. Like, number one, there wasn't 6 feet. She wasn't 6 feet away from anybody. Number 2, she didn't have a mask on. And number 3, if you're not afraid, stay home.
Stay
home.
home.
A live stream option. Stay home. And I was just like, you're screaming at me. So I just turned around and I said to her, I said, I'm sorry, I don't share your fear, and I'm not sick. So if you're that afraid, go home. Go find your car. I was like, I can't get 6 feet away from you, unfortunately. So it was just one of those moments where I was like, that's how bad it's become. And, we're outside.
If I can just chime in for a second, May 5th, not that long ago, just a little over a month ago, because I'm big on studies, and this came from the Australian New Zealand Clinical Trial Registries. It was an assessment of whether or not masks work. Okay, and what they did, they compared in their clinical trial, already through the coronavirus thing that has taken place down there, the effectiveness of a cloth mask compared to a medical mask compared to no mask at all. Okay, there's your three groups. None, cloth, medical. The study was the first ever done on looking at cloth masks, and the results showed, you ready? Cloth masks had a significantly higher rate of transmission compared to no mask at all. The analysis by the mask showed cloth masks let through 97% of the particles. Distancing blocked nearly 70%. Medical masks, pure medical masks, blocked 44%. That was the best that they could do. So this was the first study that basically said the use of cloth masks is widespread around the world, particularly in countries at high risk for emerging infections, but there have been no studies at all to underpin their use. Anybody can go look that up. It's the New Zealand Clinical Trial Registry. First one done on cloth versus medical versus none, and none won.
Wow.
Yeah, so from the WHO, from the data we have, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmit onward to a secondary individual. That's from Dr. Maria Van, Kerkhove, head of the WHO's Emerging Disease Unit, which she said this in a news briefing with the United Nations Agency in Geneva headquarters. It's very rare, she said. So if it's very rare that asymptomatic people, why are we requiring masks? Very rare. From the World Health Organization themselves, who actually started this whole thing, caused all the issues, hid all the information, then exposed it in such a way that it actually almost, bankrupt our economy. Again, the day that he told them that we were defunding them, I wanted to do cartwheels.
Which we should have. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And again, I don't think any of us want to downplay the seriousness of the infection itself. We can't do that.
Exactly.
But, when we look back and say, in God's master scheme of things, when these kind of events take place, can we look for something that comes out of this? And when we look at it and see those that had the most difficulties with this infection were those that were what? Overweight, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and unfortunately the seniors stuck in a senior home. But look at the others that need to now wake up and say, you better lose weight. You better get yourself back in shape. You better take care of your blood sugars. You better take care of your heart. If you're going to sit there and just go the medical model and keep walking down that path without seeking good counsel to get yourself on an exercise program, proper eating, proper diet, proper nutraceuticals, the next time something comes around, you're going to become a victim also. You need to wake up and understand you must step forward and do something to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's that drop
I got a
that
study.
overflows the bucket.
I have a study here too from this one. Where right now, I think the least amount of freedom is in California right now. I think if you're outside without a mask, you're getting stopped by the police. But listen to this. This is the COVID-19 response recommendations by the state of California executive order dated March 4th, 2020, this year, and the California Department of Public Health dated April 1st, 2020. It says right in it, the use of a face mask is a guideline. And this document provides public health information for the use of a cloth face covering by the general public when outside the home or conducting essential activities. It does not substitute for existing guidance about social distancing and hand washing. It does not mandate that face coverings be worn statewide. It's a suggestion, but they're arresting people without masks in California, outside in the open air. This is where freedom.
Well, the second part of that, though, Joe, is they never report that they have to let them go because there's no judge that's going to roll on it. There's nothing to roll on. There's no law. They didn't break any law.
No.
So
right.
They can waste all our tax money. They can waste all of our resources on police that should be doing other things right now and go arrest people that are not afraid. And as soon as they bring them in, they have to let them go. It's a waste of time, a waste of money, and all it is propaganda. And so I have gone to every business in this town without a mask because I am aware of what the WHO says. I am aware of what my immune system is capable of, and I am aware that I'm not sick. And so I've only had one person say anything to me. And, you know, God bless her, she probably wished she didn't open her mouth because she got a dissertation on what this whole thing was about. And she just was looking at me like the deer in the headlights. And I was like, any questions? Okay, can I just go get my laundry detergent that I needed? Thank you so much. So, you know, it's one of those things that they try to stop you coming in, and they really can't. They can't ask you why you don't have a mask on. That's a HIPAA violation. That is a law.
Ooh.
And so that's what we need to come up against is when someone comes in and says, you need a mask, and you say, I can't wear one, they are not allowed to ask you why. Because if they do, it's a violation of your HIPAA law. The police aren't allowed to ask you why. The judge is not allowed to ask you why. That's HIPAA. That's what it's there for. So that's the one thing we have to bank on is our medical freedom of choice. We should not have to wear a stamp, a scarlet letter on our persons because we're sick or we choose not to participate in a medical procedure. That's where this country is going. It's like you're branded now if you don't follow the herd, you know, right into indoctrinated thinking of pharmacy. You're branded. It's like if you don't vaccinate, you got to sign your papers away. Although we're never given informed consent, which is a law, we're supposed to be given informed consent on a medical procedure. You don't wear a mask now, you're branded because you're selfish or you don't care about somebody. When really you're just educated and aware and have read more than CNN News. You know, so this whole thing that's coming up, it's a way to move the population into hating each other, dividing us, so that they can come in and just bestow their laws all over us and make us do things. The other thing that I'm seeing now is before you get medical care, they're making you take a titer test for COVID-19. That is another violation. They can't do that. They can't refuse medical care to somebody based on a premises. It is against the law. So if you go into the emergency room and they won't treat you because you won't take a COVID-19 test, that is against the law. So people need to be aware of what these laws mean and what actually is a law and what's not a law. What's not a law is requiring a COVID-19 test before a medical procedure of any kind, period. It's the same thing with surgery, right? They go in, they make you take a heart test in order to get a surgery. Now, that's a liability for the doctor. It's not a law. The doctor's doing that so you don't die on the table of a cardiac arrest. Is it smart? Probably, right? But, I mean, cardiovascular disease compared to COVID-19 titers, regardless, it doesn't matter. Why would you have to prove you had COVID-19 to get a surgery? Why would I have to prove I had the flu or the measles or the chicken pox? I mean, come on. It's so stupid.
You know, what's really amazing is, you know, I'm here in the state of Georgia where we've been wide open now for at least 3 weeks. We're going on our 4th week right now, and the rates continue to just diminish away. I mean, there's, you know, people are still wearing masks if they want to. All the businesses are back open. Everybody's practicing the right levels of distancing. The restaurants have done a phenomenal job of, you know, keeping every other table in use while they're trying to get through this whole thing. Our grocery stores have made all their aisles one way. You go up one way, down the other way. So you're not bumping into people. And it has worked. You know, it's a little crazy, but this state has one of the lowest rates of COVID anywhere in the country. Here and in Florida, where they've opened up bigger and better than any place else. So, again, you guys are stuck with a wonderful governor there that is doing such a spectacular job. I cannot believe.
He's an emperor.
Well, look at all the states that have those idiot governors. You know, what states are they?
Well, wait, I'm going to ask Dr. Len something. Trace, let me ask Dr. Len something. Why are we doing all of these procedures on the bottom end of the curve in the summer, and they weren't done in March?
Right,
you know, because
exactly.
Every day somebody discovers something new. Let's try this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it becomes the hot fad. And I will tell you, from a grocery store perspective, our two big chains down here are Publix and Kroger's. Kroger's has done nothing except help. They put a screen up in front of the cashiers, which probably should have been there all along. But you go shopping there, no problem at all. Publix went a little bit overboard, and they're using it as a publicity stunt to say, look, we were more aggressive here. And the same thing, you've got two big box stores for hardware, right? You've got Lowe's and Home Depot. Lowe's never did a thing, and their business went up 90% during all this. Home Depot stopped you at the door, made you wait in line, 50 people in. As soon as somebody left, you could go in. Their business went down almost 40%. So, again, did anybody catch coronavirus in either one of those stores? Probably not.
No, you're not going to. All right, so before we get into fibro, Tracy, I want to ask one more thing to Dr. Len. What is your opinion, Doc? Tracy and I have discussed this a little on the findings by both Italy and other parts of the world that what is actually happening is this is triggering hyperinflammation, hypercoagulation, and hypoxia. And it's not acting like any other virus known to man, but actually more like bacteria. What is your opinion of this first? And do you think that they're on the right path?
The results that I'm hearing, and I have a couple friends that are physicians in Germany that really oversaw some of what was done in Italy as well. And what they found was this is acting much, much more like a bacterial presence, quite honestly. And it's managing to get in through the body, through various ports, the most common, which are called ACE receptors, which are in the lungs, getting into the body. And the difference that this had was that if you had some predisposing weaknesses in your system, this managed to cleave off heme, H-E-M-E, off your red blood cells, which caused a release of iron into your body, which caused damage to organs, lungs, kidneys, liver. So, was it different? Yes. Was it serious? Yes. Was it something that could have been controlled differently? Absolutely. Is it now coming to a wind-down period where, just like almost every other virus that has ever come across the face of the earth, it eventually winds its way back down? You know, and again, in my humble opinion, I know Tracy has the same one, we're searching for that vaccine as the panacea here. That's not going to be the panacea. I still contend.
Right.
And I heard this on 60 Minutes Sunday night when they interviewed somebody from the CDC that said, we have one company right now that seems to be ahead of all the others, and we're ordering 100 million doses of vaccine before we even know if it's safe. And they admitted it.
Yeah, it's
on Sunday night on 60 Minutes.
GlaxoSmithKline, which is like the worst vaccine company you can go with. They have such horrible testing procedures, horrible cleanliness. You know, I always tell people, if you're going to go vax your kids, you know, your choice, that's your choice, right? You love your children as much as I love mine. Just don't go with GlaxoSmithKline. It's terrible procedures. But here's the thing. When you look on the Internet now, go try to find that world clock that was so predominant before, right? You got to search and search and search for it now because they're hiding it, because the recovery rate, 6.9 million people infected, only 401,000 deaths. That's like, so I know that's not, no death is okay. No death is okay, period. And, our prayers go out to people that have succumbed to this. And what we've learned is that that rate hasn't climbed. It's been a couple of weeks since I saw that, and it's not climbing anymore, like Dr. Lynn is saying. And that's a global number. That's a global number. Second, they're seeing that the herd immunity, like you're saying, Dr. Lynn, is working, right? And there's not going to be a need for vaccination because it's stopping. The death rate is stopping. The recovery rate is up. We've actually doubled our recovery rate, and the process of perishing due to COVID-19. I mean, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, it was like 363,000. We're at 401 now within 2 weeks. So it's drastically slowed down. Unfortunately, some people have died from it, and that's never anything to take lightly. But who had the most deaths? Guess which country? I'll give you one guess. Which country had the most? The good old USA, the one who's so far ahead in their medical advances. We're just awesome. But nope, we had the most deaths. You know why? Because we're the sickest, fattest, most pharmacologically laden country in the world. And you know what? What this showed us is it's showing. Our stripes are showing right here. We weren't ready. We have the sad American diet. We have the highest inflammation. We take most of the medication. We're the most unhealthy country in the world. And what COVID-19 was expose all of that for us. So people want to model what we do here. They want to model our medical system. Let's take a second look.
Yes. Well, I think that was the whole idea, was to target the U.S. on this, but that's another discussion. Anyway.
It worked.
You ready to talk about fibro?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, let me just say this, and this is something, Tracy, that you don't know, and Joe, I don't even think you know this, but in my pharmacy down here, in my natural pharmacy, in my office, I have 4 T-shirts hanging up. Okay, 4 T-shirts, because one of the things that I've done since 1995, so we're coming up on, 25 years, was treating fibromyalgia patients. So I have 4 T-shirts up. The one I'm looking at right now says, I don't even have the energy to pretend that I like you today. I have fibro. I have another T-shirt hanging up that says, not sure if I'm dying or having a fibro flare. And another one that says, and the award for acting normal when you have a crap load of pain goes to me. Now, that being said, and I don't want to make jest of fibromyalgia, when you see that 80% of the patients come down with this, and I like to call it arthritis of the muscles, it's real. Now, I'm going to go back to 1995, and that's the point where I said there was an impetus point for me. I was recruited, along with a number of other practitioners, to participate in a large clinical trial on fibromyalgia. Now, when you start a clinical trial, and we were sponsored by that great group called the National Institutes of Health, we had to recruit 5 patients of our own who had fibro to participate in this study. Okay, so when we did this, we ended up with 85 patients total, and the goal, when they gave it to us, they put this thought in our mind. They wanted us to prove that fibromyalgia was a neuropsychiatric illness so that insurance companies would not have to reimburse for it. So we set out for 1 year with our patients, and here's what we did. We got a food diary. We did intense food allergy testing. We gathered the data together, and we came up with a list of the top 20 things that needed to be avoided in a fibro patient. At the end of 6 months, we took half the patients aside saying, you must strictly adhere to this list. The other ones, go about your business. Here's the result. This was a 1-year trial. After 6 months, the control group that avoided showed 50% less pain, 70% less depression, 50% more energy, and 30% less stiffness. Whereas the control group that did nothing showed increases in all. Now, the outcome of this was it was proven coming out of this study, which was published in the Journal of Musculoskeletal Pain, Volume 6, 1998, that fibromyalgia was indeed a true illness. It was not neuropsychiatric. So when we came out of that study, I wanted to take a look and say, what is this thing? What is it? What is it that's causing this problem? And I will tell you, coming out of that immune load problem, which they found to be a big deal, a lot of food allergies with this, a lot of things that needed to be avoided. We also found that, and this is something you talk about a lot, Tracy, is in the mitochondria during the Krebs cycle, where your body and your muscles normally produce energy, there was a flaw in certain individuals that weren't capable of producing the ATP, the energy that was necessary to power their bodies. And when that happened, the Krebs cycle malfunctioned like an engine that needed their air filter changed. And we ended up with a lot of waste material building up in the muscle cells, which caused this chronic overload of pain in the muscles. So again, you can look at all the signs and symptoms. There's so many other predisposing conditions, because what we found in almost every case of fibro is that there was a trauma event somewhere in the person's life. A car accident, a death in the family, some emotional overload that they can almost pinpoint. From that point on, fibro started to flare. So there's no doubt this is body-wide pain. There's all kind of different diagnoses about pressure points and how many you need to have to get a proper diagnosis. And the unfortunate thing is, from a pharmaceutical perspective, you find that the receptor sites for pain management in the body of a fibro patient are blocked. So when you go to your doctor and the doctor prescribes Celebrex or ibuprofen or even Tylenol, it doesn't work. There's no way at all to get pain relief by taking a pharmaceutical. So you have to look somewhere else. And I like the list that you all put together, because when you come down to treatment for a fibro patient, you've got to think outside the box. You've got to look at the other remedies that are out there and meticulously go through those so you can start to get a level of relief.
Well, I'll tell you one of the best things that I used, and I can't cure, treat, or diagnose. I'm just not smart enough. So what I used in my practice with people that came in with that diagnosis, and although I can't treat that diagnosis, I can help them with the muscle pain and help manage it through nutrition. I used Power Fuel. And what you're saying about the mitochondrial dysfunction, the reason I think Power Fuel worked was because of the D-ribose. It's actually shown in studies to improve cellular processes in mitochondrial dysfunction. So when people take that, it can bypass part of that pathway and go around, biohack it, and fill the gaps when people have a hard time with the conversion of the Krebs cycle, grabbing on to NADH and converting it into ATP. So Power Fuel has D-ribose, and it also has, right, Joe? DMG, darn mighty good from head to toe, and CoQ10, which helps with the process of glycolysis and converting that first part of the electron transport chain. And then it comes in with the acetyl L-carnitine, right, which is great. I mean, it just, who doesn't need that, especially for heart health and everything else? Protease, which is a proteolytic enzyme, it's going to help with inflammation, because we have to remember that enzyme therapy works in between meals. So I would tell people to take Power Fuel on an empty stomach, so that the D-ribose is getting in there, it's doing what it needs with the mitochondria, the DMG is oxygenating, the CoQ10 is helping with the electron transport chain, the protease is going in there, eating all the inflammation, deconstructing what shouldn't be there, and then you had bromelain, which is another one that helps with, all kinds of inflammation, plus everything else, the rhodiola, I can't remember what else is in there, but there was one more that I'm missing, I think, or two more. But,
malic acid, I think. Malic acid.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah. And that helps with what, ATP, right? So all of these things in combination.
With preventing lactic acid buildup. Preventing lactic acid buildup. Yep.
Yeah, so, and that's what happens. So that ATP production what people don't realize is lactic acid isn't a bad thing. It's just an indicator to stop. So your body takes that lactic acid and combines it with other things and recycles it through the Krebs cycle. When you can't recycle it through the Krebs cycle and convert to ATP, it builds up in your muscles and you get this chronic soreness, which now they're calling like fibromyalgia, right? So it's like you said, it's arthritis for the muscles. And so I use this product as if someone walked in with that diagnosis, I was like, try this because of all these ingredients have been studied for X, Y, and Z. They're all in here in combination. Let's give it a whirl and see if it helps manage some of the pain until we figure out what food sensitivities you have, the overgrowth of candida, do you have heavy metals, what's the root cause? Why aren't you converting? Why aren't you having mitochondrial biogenesis? What's happening, right? So I loved Power Fuel. It was my number one go-to. And I have to tell you, every single person that I used this product with that diagnosis continued to buy it, even after they felt better, just for the energy.
That's right.
So it's a great product.
I want to throw in two other things, and I'm going to ask Joe to comment on one of those, is that when I've done blood work on the patients, and just keep in mind, I just pulled a statistic from, the American College of Pharmacy. Between 6 and 11 million females in the United States are now said to have fibromyalgia. It's now accounting for 9% of all family practice visits. We're closing in on 1 out of every 10 visits to a doctor are dealing now with fibromyalgia. So anybody that may say, hey, I'm not, it's not me, but if you see 10 people walking down the street, especially females, probably one of those. Now, the one thing I was going to ask Joe to do is every one of these, virtually 100% of the patients, when I do magnesium levels in their blood, it's just bottomed out dramatically. So, Joe, if you can just mention, Nutritional Frontiers has a wonderful mag prep. And again, I love what Tracy just said about using Power Fuel and coming back with the right forms of magnesium at the right dose can be part 2 of solving some of this pain issue.
Well, right on the money, Len, because, and Tracy and I have talked about this so many times on the radio, and that, you can trace just about everything, every affliction, back to either a deficiency or a toxicity, and so many times it's a combination of both. So when you have the number one deficiency for vitamins and minerals in this country is magnesium. Head and shoulders. I mean, D3, big deficiency. K2, big deficiency. Omega-3s, big deficiency. Magnesium blows them away. It's the number one deficiency. And, we know we can't get it from our food anymore. We know that we have to supplement with it. So, therefore, most people that may even be trying to supplement with magnesium are probably using an inferior form, one that is not absorbing well, and therefore they still aren't getting the therapeutic levels of magnesium that they need. And there's nothing better for your muscles, for the relaxation of the muscle, than magnesium. So I would say that 1 out of 10, I'll bet 9 out of 10 are, if not 10 out of 10, are magnesium deficient, and it just hasn't manifested yet into this affliction of fibromyalgia. So the reason Mag Complete works so well is because it uses 3 highly bioavailable forms of magnesium. And those are magnesium tartrate, glycinate, and malate. And you got 3 highly, you notice there's no citrate in there. You notice there's no oxide in there. There's just 3 forms that are highly, highly absorbable. And that's what gives it its oomph. And you don't need as much of it either, just like you would with other magnesium forms. But, and it doesn't have any effect on, it doesn't have a laxative effect either. Okay, citrate is going to have some. You take too much of it. And with this, though, you don't. You don't have that effect, so you can take it safely. You can get these amounts and in a therapeutic level, and you're going to see results very, very quickly because they're so highly absorbed in the body, and that's what sets it aside. Great, great formula. And I really haven't seen this combination anywhere else. I mean, a lot of people like glycinate. Yeah, it's a great form of magnesium. I mean, there's companies that sell that by itself. But we've never done that. We've always made sure we had a synergistic blend of the most absorbable, most therapeutic forms of these nutrients. So you're right on the money with that one, Len.
But let me throw out another one. I'm going to get this one to Tracy because, again, coming from my traditional side, if I'm in a family practice setting and somebody comes in and says, I think I have fibromyalgia, the first question I'm going to ask them is, how bad is your sleep patterns? And you're going to find that there's a big neurotransmitter thing going on here that dwells around GABA levels. And when you can't sleep, the muscles don't get a chance to relax, and fibro spins out of control. But nearly 90% of people with fibro are having sleep difficulties. Trace, I throw sleep time at them right away. I get as aggressive as I can to try to fix that sleep problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what we have to remember is the different patterns and brain waves of sleep, right? I mean, when you're in sleep mode, you're in delta. And that's where you get that good REM sleep. But right before that is theta, right before that, you go through all the different brainwave patterns. And, most of our subconscious pain comes in that theta wave. And that's where they get stuck. They don't get into that good REM sleep. As Jamie would say, what is it? The double Ds, drooling and dreaming, right?
Yeah.
So the REM sleep is where we release growth hormones, where we repair and recover. It's essential that we sleep. And, sleep time already has the GABA, which is naturally occurring anyway in our body. So it can kind of step in the gap for us. It also has that sun-theanine. This has been, studied in like 40 different, I'm missing a word, Joe. Help me out.
Studies on sun-theanine.
Not clinical trials. It's studies, but it's known to help with the alpha waves, which are then turned into theta waves, which are then turned into delta waves. So it goes through all the neurology. And that's the one thing I think we miss is that, using things like meditation or prayer before bed, that gets those brain waves to go into the next phases. Being on our iPads don't. So I agree. The sun-theanine, known for those studies as clinical trials to promote that state of relaxation. So for people that don't want to meditate or pray before bed, this is a great kind of step in the gap. It also has the 5-HTP. We know what that does for any type of, insomnia, depression, and there's been studies on it specifically for fibromyalgia and reducing pain. So this is a great one to come in and help people get that sleep that they need. Also some, studies done on the specific ingredients. Also, the B5, the B6. Both of those things are extremely important for epinephrine and norepinephrine. So all of these things start that neurotransmitter production and communication in the brain. And then we wrap it all up with a little bit of melatonin, which is going to lower cortisol levels in the body. We know what melatonin now does, thanks to COVID. If we can say there's anything good came out of it, at least there was more studies done on melatonin and its ability to calm down the cytokine response and inflammation in the body. So think about these fibro people who are having a chronic state of inflammatory response because there probably is a toxicity or a food sensitivity in addition. So we think of these formulas just as, this is just for sleep or just for whatever. And really, these comprehensive formulas that we have, they can cross a lot of barriers for a lot of different things. And you can do all the right things, right? You can exercise, eat all the kale you want, take all your supplements. But if you're not sleeping, you still won't recover. And that's one of the things that we really have to address in this nation because it's in the top 3 issues that Americans have. I think it's up there. I think it's one of the top 3 that sleep is the biggest issue that people deal with in this country. So you're dead on with that one for more reasons than just good sleep.
Hey, Tracy and Joe, I think I had told Tracy earlier this morning I have another appointment at 9:30 this morning, so I've got to run. So thank you for the opportunity to be on with you guys. It's always fun, always the Three Musketeers. I love doing this. We can do it again at any time. So, and anybody that wants to reach me for any reason, 678-228-8900 is the number here to the office, 678-228-8900. And you guys take care. Have a great day, and thanks for the great information.
Thanks. Always
Dr.
a pleasure,
Len.
Len.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
So,
All right, Joe.
I would
Just
say-
you and I.
all right. So let's get into this a little more here because I mean,
Okay.
yeah. So okay, let's round this off, Tracy, because you know what works on the central nervous system better than any other nutrient that we've seen in our career, and it's been deprived to the American public since 1937, but it directly affects the entire central nervous system, which affects sleep, which affects neurotransmitters, which affects pain, all of these things. I mean, should there be a patient suffering from fibromyalgia that is not on a good dose of phytocannabinoid-rich hemp oil?
I was just going to say, is this the 91st essential nutrient? Is that what we're talking
The
about?
91st essential nutrient, yes.
As termed by Joe Messino. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, unfortunately, full spectrum hemp extract, i.e. CBD, has not been studied as it should have been studied for so many things. And I agree. You know, one of those things, Joe, from listening to you over the last year and a half about full spectrum hemp extract is I think everybody should be on it. Not only for the physiological benefits, but also the emotional and mental benefits. Part of the battle with pain is mental. How many people do you know that are in chronic pain like that who don't suffer from some sort of depression, anxiety, mood issue, because they just, how would you like to suffer every single solitary day with that pain?
Yeah. You know what else, Tracy? I think a lot of it stems from what's happening and what they're getting prescribed by their doctors. They may have issues like fibromyalgia. But, you know, I know a doctor that I've worked with for 20-some years who says that any time a patient is diagnosed by a allopathic physician with fibromyalgia, it's because they don't know what to do for them. And they just lump them into that category, and then they start giving them antidepressants because nothing else is working. So they figure, well, we'll just calm you down and take you out of society and give you antidepressants so you don't think about it. And then what does that do? It makes the matter worse, right?
Well,
so,
the
yeah, I
other
agree.
one
Everybody.
that I'm noticing is that, what is that pain medication, gabapentin? Oh, my gosh. That stuff is, people that are on that, they just don't realize the detrimental effects. I wish people would read the side effects of the medication, the inserts that come with it, and ask better questions. You know, things like, how long should I be on this? Is there any other thing that I can do? I think some people are coming to awareness with it. But, you know, the more alternatives that we can present to them, even if it's, you know, for a period of time that they have to use a pharmaceutical and then come over to, you know, using more natural methods, I think it's really important that we just give them the information. But, I mean, look at what CBD does, right, full spectrum hemp, reduces brain inflammation, which we know with fibro, not only is the inflammation in the muscles, it's in the brain as well, right? So it puts the glial cells in the brain back into hibernation. And activation of glial cells is key development of chronic pain and excess pain that we see in fibromyalgia. So that's a big one. It lowers the fight or flight of the nervous system. Again, you don't want to be in a chronic state of stress. What happens when you're stressed out? What happens to your muscles? They tense up. Fibromyalgia patients don't need more tense or more, you know, contraction of the muscular system, right? And also from all of this deficiency, chronic pain, inflammation in the muscles, you're eventually going to have neuropathic pain. You're going to start damaging nerve endings. So adding this CBD along with the Power Fuel, magnesium, and sleep time, 4 products, Joe. 4 products And what's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt? We've got nothing to lose at this point.
I think we just came up with our fibromyalgia kit.
We want to raise. No, I'm just kidding.
I think we came up with our pain kit. Where's Jamie? Is he listening?
Pain kit.
Jamie.
Yeah, we got a pain kit.
Pain kit.
So,
Power Fuel.
Yep.
Power Fuel. Mag Complete. Sleep Time. And our full spectrum hemp oil. Can't beat it.
You can't beat it. I think we just solved that problem. Let's move on to world hunger. So here's my opinion. No, I'm just kidding. But, CBD is also a muscle relaxant, right? It reduces anxiety. It's one of those things, Joe, when you say it hits all of the areas of the body, it does, because everything's controlled by the central nervous system. Your brainstem, your spinal cord, your communication, neurotransmitters. It all starts with the thoughts you think and the food that you eat, but your food also controls the communication to your brain, and that's called the enteric nervous system. So we can't think that what we eat doesn't matter. It does. So we have to take dietary lifestyle changes. We have to put in the right nutrients at the right times in the right amount.
Right.
And that Power Fuel, the best thing I told people was in between meals. I'm like, take it on an empty stomach. Let it get in there and do its thing. And the same thing with using the full spectrum hemp extract. You can't just take 1 or 2 drops and think it's going to work. You got to take it throughout the day initially, and then you can go to once or twice a day. But you do have to get the right amounts in there. It's really important.
Yes.
And, all of our products, patented, trademarked ingredients, the right amounts, the right forms, and then nothing else, right? That's what Jamie says. Nothing else. We have enough toxicity in the body. We don't need more, so we keep our products clean.
Well, and, just like many of our physicians have said, Dr. Weiner among them, have said over the years, we don't have a deficiency to these synthetic drugs. But we do have deficiencies that need addressed. And one of the biggest ones is the cannabinoids for the endocannabinoid system, a system in our body that we know exists and has been starved of its key nutrient for generations. That should be enough said, Trace. That's all you should have to hear to start supplementing with our organic hemp oil.
Yep. And people can do this while they're on any other type of, pain medication.
Sure.
There's nothing here that's going to interfere with that. And maybe if they're trying to wean, because you know how pain medications make you feel. None of our product labels say don't operate heavy machinery. They don't say that because you don't get those negative direct effects from pharmaceuticals. So we really have to figure, these people that are suffering with all this pain, they don't want to not have quality of life in a different way now. They don't have quality of life already with pain. Now we're going to put a narcotic on them or some sort of pain medication that is really going to deplete their quality of life in other areas. So we're trying to bestow quality of life, not take it away. Just fulfilling, like we said, Joe, those nutrition gaps and also removing some toxicity through lifestyle and dietary changes can make all the difference. In 30 days, people have a noticeable effect. I know I put a lady on this Power Fuel. She won't live without it. And even now, when she has changed her diet, her lifestyle, everything, now she uses it because she has gone back to working out. She's going back to HIIT classes and all of those really strenuous body weight classes, CrossFit, all of that. And she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So through her own accord of changing her lifestyle, her diet, putting in the right nutrition and products, she has made a full recovery. She's no longer classified as that, and she's going to CrossFit classes. Now, what fibromyalgia person do you know can take a CrossFit class? I mean, the biggest thing that they can't do is recover. So, that's astounding lifestyle. So, and that's the thing we got to make sure people understand. The body's amazing. Given the right things in the right environment, it will respond accordingly. It can recover. And that's the biggest thing we got to give people is hope. So, I don't know. I think we just came up with a new kit.
I think we did. It was inevitable because you get the Three Musketeers together You get the Three Musketeers, and then look out. You never know what's coming out of it. But it's always going to be something good. And this was fun. This was a lot of fun. But I think we're out of time already. You believe this?
I know.
Yeah, well. All right. It's Power Fuel. Love it. Mag Complete. Everybody needs it. Sleep time. If you don't sleep, nothing gets fixed. And our full spectrum hemp oil, phytocannabinoid-rich hemp oil, because your body's been deprived of it since 1937, if you've been alive that long. So, not even me.
Right. Well, Joe, as always, close us out, and thank you for your time and always your knowledge.
Always
wisdom.
a pleasure.
It's awesome.
Yes. And as we keep coming up with all these things you can do to fix what's going on around us out there, folks, you just keep that attitude of gratitude for the things that you do still have. And we promise you, you will live long and prosper.
You've been listening to The Holistic Truth, sponsored by Nutritional Frontiers, a Pittsburgh-based professional nutraceutical company founded by Dr. James Weiner and Jamie Dorley. Listen again at this same time for The Holistic Truth.